Okay, good morning guys. So today's one is going to be on how to create a brush. So we're going to go through how to find where the brushes are, how to manipulate brushes, duplicate brushes, and so on and so forth. And then I'll do some tips. And then if you want, you can grab the brush that I use now, which is the Stoak'd Studio pen, which was basically a manipulation and different other thing, but pretty much just how I like it when I draw. But if you like the way it looks, then feel free to follow along. It'll probably be a bit at the end of the video, so if you want to skip to that part, you can, and then you can just look at the settings. I'll go through each of them, and then you can grab it for whatever you want to do with it. So first things first, let's just get rid of this so you don't have to see that anymore. So obviously brushes are found in the brush library, okay? Now, one thing you can do here is, obviously, if you watch the glitter brush I tried to do, this was one that I made. And all you want to do is, if you pull down, this is a library here. Obviously it says brush library, but you can make your own library. So good way of making sure everything's in the same place you want it. Then you can find out everything, you can retype. If you obviously do a duplicate or you're tired of this particular one, duplicate. I think it's just the ones that you do. So this one, yeah, so ones I actually make, if you double tap, you can delete, share, duplicate, rename. So yeah, the ones that come with Procreate as the settings, you can only duplicate and can't share them, blah blah blah, obviously. Yeah, so this one I'm just going to delete, but that's how basically you can get your brush library. On top of that, this is where you find your brush studio. So they've made it pretty easy now. The two main ones in doing a brush is shape and grain, and then after that is dynamics, which you can play with. I don't tend to, but you can. And Apple Pencil, because this is obviously how your Apple Pencil relates to when you put it on the screen. Yeah, did not want that tilt up, that's for sure. Yeah, so that's kind of how this particular works. The good thing about in here is you can also see stuff change by, so it's moving in and out. I can see it, but you might not be. Let's just put these tapers on and actually use the pen. So get rid of this. So now you can see the tapers change. Yeah. So now I have a different style of taper. And obviously you can bring that back down to whatever it was, which I'll do because I'll leave it the way it was because it's just an untitled brush. So the standard, if you're making a new brush, they give you the round and the square background. So if you want to change your shape, you go up to Edit, Import a source library, which is Procreate's one. And they've got loads to choose from. The ones you don't want to choose are the ones that are pure squares, as in the whole. Oh, they don't actually. Oh, that's good. There's a new one, so it's different. Grain sources come fully in a square, if you get what I mean. I mean, it's like a full canvas. Yeah. See, it's all filled up to the brim, and then obviously the shape sources, you can just choose whatever shape you want to choose, basically. A way of looking at it is when you look at a brush head on, this would be what the brush looks like, and then the grain is what the brush stroke is. I think that's a simplified way of seeing it. So you can change your shape. You go into grain, same principle, edit, import, source library, and it'll take you to the grain source, like so. Another way of doing it is to make your own grain or own shape. So the best way I've seen people do it is actually to they take A4 piece of paper, keep pressing the wrong one, and there we go, just normal A4 piece of paper, and then they get stuff that's around them in their art space or whatever it is, and then just do, you know, crazy lines, or obviously like so, and then maybe choose, I mean, this is obviously a bit different from me because we're obviously in this thing called Procreate, but the whole idea was that you could do something like that, like little different shapes, and this in essence would be your shape, and then you would go in and then you would make a grain. So you could do the grain in here as long as you cover the whole. So if I cover this all up, sorry, this is not going the way I wanted it to go. I need a bigger brush, that's why. So let's just clear this layer. This is what I mean by using a grain, just fill the whole page up. Obviously, to get to the edges, you would need full screen mode on. So this would be, in essence, like a grain. So you could PNG this, save it on your camera roll, and then go back to your brush, because I have one, yeah. And then go into grain, import a photo. Sometimes it does this to me. Grab your grain. Done. Now you have a new grain, and then it puts it into your brush. So just as easy as that, really. And then you can do your own grain, your own kind of brush style or brush shape, depending on what you want to do. So those two, I'd say this one and this one, they're the two main ones. If you want to create your own ones, I mean, look what I did. I just created a new brush with a different grain in like 10 seconds. A bit longer because I was screwing around too hard. Alright, so those two are kind of your main ones. Stroke path. This is basically, if you think of it as stroke path as whatever your brush shape is, so mine's obviously circles, and then if you put this like this, then obviously you can see that these are all the circles, but if you had this down to 0, you would get obviously a full clean stroke. So let me just, so that would be a stroke of all these dots joined together. So if I do this, then obviously it takes them away. You can see them start to come apart basically. Streamline, I love Streamline. Streamline is my best friend. Usually I have Streamline 70 or 100% up. That is my deal. So if I do this, especially with like calligraphers, I'm going to just write, okay? So that's me with it down, okay? Now fully up. It's just a lot cleaner, yeah? So you can bring the streamline down a bit, but streamline in my eyes is my best friend. I always say streamline 70% or up is always good, unless, you know, especially when you're doing long sweeping lines, especially when you're inking a character or anything like that, it's better to have jitter. Kind of mashes everything up, so definitely gets away from the clear line, but it could give you a good effect. So now it's a bit cloudy. I wonder what happens now. Yeah, you'd have to bring down the size of the brush, but maybe that would be like a cool effect. See if I can bring the size of the brush down. If I remember where it is. Stroke path. Nope. Pencil. There you go. Size of the brush down. So now, if interesting. But you can play around with that, do whatever you want to do, which is always cool. Let's get rid of that. So next one, stroke path we've cleared. Taper, I always like taper, but taper is kind of whatever. I need to change this back. That's going to be a bit annoying. What did I? Shape, grain, blending. Streamline, jitter, that's what's on. Jitter's on, okay. So, taper. I always like to have taper on. You can do one side. If you press this, it will bring them together and do whatever you're going to do. Usually have a taper on. You can see it change, like so. So just by pushing your taper off, this is going to change the taper. So you can see it obviously get a lot fatter, a lot thinner. Try doing one side. You can experiment, it gives you different kind of styles basically. Shape and grain we've talked about. I don't usually mess around with anything in here, in all honesty. I mean, you can, because all you're doing is you're moving this, the grain source, but usually when I bring it in, I just leave it. The depth is one that people talk about if you want more depth, but usually it's on max anyway, so you might as well just leave it as it is. Rendering, don't touch. Usually leave it to whatever it is. Wet mix is more to do with watercolors, I would say, and acrylic paints, and you know, mixing stuff, and how well a brush digitally works with another brush when mixing a color, that kind of style. That's kind of hazarded guess in my eyes. I don't play with it, that's all I'm saying. Alright, this is the cool thing that everyone I know talks about when they do calligraphy, because when it came out, this was the big bonus. So here, color dynamics. If you turn on hue and saturation and draw, you get the funky wheel of fortune. So what it's doing there is the stamp color is, if you think of the color wheel that's in Procreate, and then it's literally just going through the color wheel. So if you turn it to max, you get like a rainbow saturation, yeah? And then same again, kind of change. You can play with this, keep it as one color, yeah? And you create some kind of weird spiral 3D effect, which is always good. The other one is stroke. So the way this works is every time you stroke, it's a different color. Yeah? So you can change hues, whatever you want to do, or change your saturation to depending on how saturated you want it. But the idea is that it basically goes round the picking wheel every time you choose a color. Okay, so that's pretty cool. You can even try with both on. It's pretty mental, but I'll let other people do that. So you can change your color pressure, so the pressure you're putting down. So you can do minus, just means it goes in the opposite direction, but obviously you need to make sure that one of these is on. So you can change saturation colors. So now when I do harder I press, the more I get in the wheel. Or yeah, if you go back the other way, it just goes the opposite direction of the color picker. Basically, it's what it gives you. Okay, dynamics. I don't usually touch this one. You want to see what happens. That is the speed in which, you know, usually I just leave it on 0, and then you can do jitter as well, but it's talking about the dynamics of the pencil. Apple Pencil, change your sizes to whatever you want it to be for the pressure. So if I just put this up a little bit, clear drawing pad, so you can see when I put pressure on, changes color, goes back, and so forth. Okay, go down 30%, changes to a different color because I've still got the stroke thing on, but we'll leave it on anyway, it's fun. But you can play around with the pressure. Tilt, I always leave on 0. No, don't ever really touch it. Properties, basically if you want your this is kind of one of the main features, is to change this to how you want it. So maximum brush, minimum brush. So when you go into this area, you get full brush size, yeah. And then obviously minimum. But it also plays around with this part, yeah. So gives you like if I change this, now I go into that, this changes a bit, yeah. So this part changes in the, I don't know what you would call it, the viewpoint of these, this changes, and then obviously you have a completely different style brush. Next, so that's brush properties. Oh, what was it? No, come out of that. Back into this one. Alright, so let's get back into that brush so I can just cover the last bit. So yeah, you can play around with this as well for opacity. Usually it's on max. Change these so it has a minimum size. And then last thing, you can tap up top, write whatever you want to do for your brush. And just put it back to that. Put your name in, sign it, create new reset point. I don't have a reset point because obviously it's a brand new brush, but you can create one and then you can go back to it if you change anything in your brush while you're using it. And then I think the best way to show you is this. So I'm using one of, let's say I put a space in that and press done. Now I've just changed Blackburn. So a good way of doing it is now I can reset all and it goes back to the brush that it originally was. See? Perfect. All right. So the other thing I was saying is my brush that I use. So let's just clear this layer. So my brush I have in inking, and it's just called the Studio Pen or Stoak'd Studio Pen. It came from the what did I use? Yeah, so normal grain and this shape layer that's already in there. So as you can see, streamline is up to 81%. I've got minimized tapers about 70%. None of this has changed. Didn't touch this except for this one. This right here. This is another thing for calligraphers and people doing lettering. They love this to be toggled on. So if you're going to use it, I would toggle it on. Gives you a whole different effect if you don't have it on. So you can just play around with that and you can change whatever you want. But it will give you a smooth line either way. Grain, didn't touch. Rendering, if it's not on light gauge, when you make it, put it on light gauge. And then that's what you need, but usually it just comes up like that. Wet, I didn't do anything. Color dynamics are all off because I don't want it changing colors. Dynamics, like I said, stayed the same. Apple Pencil, I put the pressure size to max, but I mean, you can see what happens when you change it. But I have it on max for when I'm doing anything. And then properties, like I said, I have maximum brush. I've got, turn that down, minimum size 3%, but I've got it on max, just like so. And then about brush is obviously the things that you already know. So you can basically pull that off. You can just copy the settings that I've gone through here. If it's too quick, I'll do it again or just redo the video. So that's Stoak'd Studio Pen. This is kind of what it looks like. That's it on small. So when I'm doing inking characters, and then as I get obviously a lot bigger, you can do some easy stuff, and then huge pen. Yeah, so it changes with pressure as well as whatever you want to do, but it kind of works for calligraphy, writing, whatever you kind of want to do. If I put it on here, there you go. So you can use it for writing, calligraphy. Just bring up the size of the brush, and then you can even use the pressure a lot better. But hopefully this was helpful and you've come away with a new brush that you can use on doing whatever you're going to do. But that brush you use doing either writing or inking characters, because it's basically a solid line, and they can get different stroke line weights as well, which is great. So if I'm doing a real wide line, then I can get those as well, and it's a solid line weight, which is great. Alright guys, that's it for today. I'm going to do another tutorial on color correcting, because there's one more quick helpful tip that's pretty cool, so I found out a couple of days ago that I'll add to the other tutorial. But other than that, thanks for watching and have a good day. We'll see you again soon.